Okay, so you know ChatGPT, right? That AI everyone's talking about. Does a pretty good job with emails, poems, sometimes even computer code.
Yeah, it's popped up everywhere.
Well, the company behind it, you might not know the name, OpenAI, they're reportedly making a really huge move.
Oh, yeah.
They're apparently buying another company called Windsurf, and get this, for something like $3 billion.
Wow. 3 billion. Okay, that's
Huh.
significant.
And look, if you're like most people, you probably don't write code for a living. So windsurf, 3 billion, it sounds like, tech jargon and just a
Right.
ton of money.
It can definitely feel like a whole different world, yeah. But let's break it down a bit. Basically, Windsurf makes tools to help people write computer code more easily,
Okay.
often using AI to help them do it. So think of it like a super smart assistant for the folks building the apps and websites we all use every day.
Gotcha. A helper for the coders. And that's where it gets really interesting, that price tag. $3 billion.
It's massive.
Why would the ChatGPT people spend so much on a tool for this, specific group? That's really what we want to dig into today.
Yeah, what's the play here?
What could it possibly mean for, like, the future of tech? And maybe even for us, the people who don't write code.
Exactly. So in this deep dive, we're going to look at the news reports, the chatter from tech insiders,
Hmm.
and try to pull out the really important stuff for you. Cut through the technical noise and figure out why this actually matters, why it might be more relevant than you think.
Okay, let's do it. So first things first. What exactly is Windsurf? What does it do?
Right. So Windsurf is essentially an AI helper for coding. You might hear it called an AI native coding tool or maybe an AI-assisted IDE.
IDE. Okay, that sounds technical.
Yeah, it does, but an IDE, an integrated development environment, is just the main software coders use, like their workshop,
Right.
where they write and organize all their code. Windsurf just puts AI right into that workshop.
Okay, so AI inside the coders mean tool.
Exactly. Makes things easier.
And I saw this phrase, vibe coding. Someone at OpenAI, Andrej Karpathy, mentioned it. And apparently Windsurf is all about this. What is vibe coding?
Haha. Yeah, vibe coding. It's a really interesting idea about where things might be headed.
Okay.
The concept is, with a really good AI, you don't have to spell out every tiny detail. You can give the computer more general instructions, sort of the vibe of what you want.
The vibe.
Yeah, and the AI handles the nitty-gritty coding. Karpathy apparently described it as like, just see stuff, say stuff, run stuff, and copy-paste stuff, and it mostly works.
Huh. So less typing exact commands, more describing the goal. And the AI figures out the code.
That's the gist, yeah. And Windsurf also helps with the stuff that takes up a lot of time, like finding mistakes,
Debugging.
right, debugging, and also improving existing code, making it cleaner or faster. That's called refactoring. Our sources mentioned another tool, Cursor, does similar things.
Okay. And there was this quote, wasn't there, from Gary Tan at Y Combinator. He was super enthusiastic.
Oh, yeah, that was striking. He said using Windsurf could make engineers feel like they're strapped on rocket boosters.
Rocket boosters. That's quite the endorsement for productivity.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Shows the potential for these AI tools to just dramatically speed things up, how fast software gets built.
Hmm.
And just a side note, Windsurf used to be called Codium. So if you've heard that name floating around, it's the same company we're talking about.
Codium. Got it. Okay, so we know what Windsurf is now. Back to the main event. Why does OpenAI, the ChatGPT company, want it? For $3 billion.
Right, the why. The sources point to a few big reasons.
Mhm.
And the first one that keeps coming up is data.
Data. Always data, isn't it?
Pretty much. One source called it a big, gigantic hole in what OpenAI knows right now.
A hole. How so?
Well, think about it. ChatGPT can spit out code if you ask it,
Yeah.
but OpenAI doesn't really see what happens next.
Yeah.
How do people actually take that code? Did they use it as is? Did they change it, tweak it, fix it? OpenAI doesn't have visibility into that actual workflow.
I see. It's like giving someone driving directions, but you don't know if they actually reach the destination or take a detour.
That's a great analogy. Yeah. So by owning Windsurf, they get access to this incredibly valuable training data.
Okay.
They'd see how their AI suggestions actually get turned into working software in the real world. That direct feedback, seeing the prompt, the suggestion, and the final code is way more useful for improving their AI models.
More useful than just like scraping code off the internet.
Exactly. One source kind of dismissively called a lot of online code potentially low-quality AI slop now. This is different. This is seeing the intent versus the output, getting that real handcrafted, good, solid signal, as they put it.
That makes sense. Better data, better AI. It's that feedback loop, right?
Precisely. It's fundamental for AI improvement, not just in coding, but everywhere. See how the output is used, refined, repeat.
Okay, so data is number one. What's the second big reason the sources mentioned? Something about cargo, capturing value.
That's right, capturing more value. The idea here is, right now, lots of other companies, they take OpenAI's tech, like the engine behind ChatGPT. They buy access to it, maybe in bulk, and then they build their own products on top of it. They become wrappers, essentially.
Okay, so they're reselling OpenAI's power in a different package.
Kind of, yeah. And maybe making good money doing it. So OpenAI provides the core ingredient, but others might be profiting more from the final dish, so to speak.
Like a farmer selling wheat versus the bakery selling the bread.
Exactly that. So if OpenAI owns a tool like Windsurf, which developers use directly,
Then they can sell the bread themselves, or at least capture more of that final value.
that seems to be the thinking, yeah. More direct relationship, potentially more revenue stays with OpenAI.
Okay. And the third reason, something about ecosystem control sounds very strategic.
It is. It's about building out their own space, their own developer-native experience, as one source put it. Meaning, right now, coders rely heavily on tools and platforms from other companies. Think Microsoft with GitHub. GitHub is huge. It's where tons of code lives and where developers collaborate.
Right. So OpenAI wants its own patch, less reliance on Microsoft.
Seems like it. Owning Windsurf gives them that direct connection to developers. They can gather what's called first-party usage telemetry.
Fancy term for seeing how people use their stuff directly.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Direct information on how developers are using AI, what works, what doesn't, right within their coding environment. One analysis described it as a shift, moving beyond just having the best AI model supremacy towards controlling the whole environment where AI coding happens, ecosystem control.
Interesting. So it's about owning the whole playground, not just the best swing set.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Okay, so Windsurf itself, what does it bring to the table that's so attractive, beyond just being a coding tool?
Well, one key thing, at least initially, was that Windsurf was designed to be model agnostic.
Meaning it didn't care which AI model you used.
Exactly. It wasn't tied just to OpenAI. You could potentially plug in models from Google, Anthropic, whoever. Now, whether that stays true after an OpenAI acquisition, that's a question.
Yeah, you'd think OpenAI might want people using their models.
And you would think. But initially, that flexibility was a big draw. Another thing is its focus on agentic code editing.
Agentic, like AI agents.
Yeah. Think beyond just suggesting the next word or line of code. Windsurf was leaning into AI agents that could handle more complex tasks. Like you describe what you want done to a chunk of code, and the agent tries to actually do it.
Okay, that sounds more like that vibe coding idea again. The AI takes on bigger chunks of work.
Definitely related. It's about the AI being more proactive, more of a collaborator than just a suggestion engine.
And wasn't there something about hardware too, less talked about, but...
Yeah, a few sources mention that. Talk about Windsurf having a focus on custom AI chips and high-performance server clusters, something designed for a model context protocol.
Whoa, okay, that's getting technical again. But the gist is, maybe they're also buying some hardware expertise or tech.
It could be part of a deeper long-term play, yeah. Thinking about the actual computing power needed to run these advanced AI coding tools really well. Not just the software, but the foundation underneath.
So Windsurf seems to have a few interesting angles, but they're not alone in this space, right? Who are the competitors?
Oh, definitely not alone. It's getting crowded. Microsoft's GitHub Copilot is probably the biggest player just because GitHub itself is so dominant.
Makes sense.
We've got Anthropic, the company behind Claude. Their AI models are also getting pretty good at coding assistance. And there are startups like AnySphere, the makers of that cursor editor we mentioned. They're getting attention too.
So OpenAI buying Windsurf could really shake things up, heat up the competition.
Absolutely. It could put pressure on Copilot, maybe affect Cursor's market share. One source specifically mentioned that Anthropic and Cursor have a close partnership, maybe as a way to counter this kind of move from OpenAI.
A strategic alliance. Okay. Now, what about the coders themselves, the actual users? We looked at some discussions on our local llama. What's the vibe there?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk and definitely some, let's say, healthy skepticism, especially about that $3 billion price.
They think it's too much.
A lot of them do. A big point is whether Windsurf, the actual tool, is worth that kind of money. Some argue it's basically just a fork of VS Code.
Fork, meaning?
VS Code is a really popular free open-source code editor. A fork means Windsurf took that free code and built their own version on top of it, adding their features. So the argument is the core isn't really theirs or radically new.
Okay. So they're saying it's not like they invented the wheel here.
Kind of, yeah. And there are questions about how many people actually use Windsurf. Estimates seem kind of low, maybe a few thousand, maybe more, but not huge numbers perhaps.
And skepticism about innovation, too.
Right. Since Windsurf doesn't own the underlying AI models it can plug into OpenAI, Google, etc., some argue its long-term innovation might be limited. It's relying on other companies' core AI breakthroughs.
But wait, didn't we say being model agnostic was a feature?
It is, for users, definitely. Gives them choice. Yeah. But from a strategic or valuation perspective, some people in the tech community see it as leveraging others' tech rather than having its own deep, unique moat, you know?
Gotcha. But there's a counter argument, right?
Right.
About the data.
Exactly. This is where it gets interesting again. Even if the tool itself is a VS Code fork, and even if it uses other people's AI models, the data it collects about how developers interact with those AI models inside the coding environment, that's seen as the real prize.
Back to the data, so it doesn't matter which AI model someone uses in Windsurf.
Right. Whether it's OpenAI's GPT or Google's Gemini or Anthropic's Claude, Windsurf is still sitting there watching, seeing the prompts, seeing what code gets accepted, rejected, modified.
All that user behavior.
Precisely. And that data is considered gold for training the next generation of AI, for building those really smart coding agents we talked about.
So the value isn't just the software, it's the insights it gathers about the human AI coding process.
That's the core argument many are making. Now, naturally, this brings up privacy concerns, too.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Are developers worried their code will end up training AI?
It's definitely a concern, especially for companies working on secret projects. But it's worth noting, some sources say Windsurf offers a zero data retention option, particularly for business users, to address exactly that. Your code doesn't get stored or used for training if you choose that.
Okay, that's important. What else were people discussing?
Well, there's a bit of irony, maybe. People point out that OpenAI constantly talks up how great their own AI models are at coding, like near human level sometimes. So the question becomes, if your own AI is supposedly so amazing at coding, why spend billions to buy a coding tool company instead of just building your own?
Yeah, good question. If you're the best chef, why buy a restaurant? Why not just open one?
Exactly. So the speculation is, maybe buying gives them an instant user base and market presence they couldn't build quickly themselves.
Okay, time to market.
Or maybe building a really polished, user-friendly, integrated coding environment is harder than just having a powerful AI model. Maybe acquiring gets them that expertise in the finished product faster than they could do it internally.
Interesting. So it might not be quite as easy as just telling their AI, build me a coding tool.
Perhaps not. And people draw parallels to when Microsoft bought GitHub for like $7.5 billion. The value there wasn't just the code hosting tech, it was the platform, the community, the ecosystem. Maybe OpenAI sees similar value in Windsurf.
Platform and users, not just the tech itself. Okay, so lots of different takes even within the tech world. Let's bring it back home. For someone listening who doesn't code, why should they care about this $3 billion deal? What's the takeaway for them?
It's a great question. Even if you never touch code, this huge investment signals something important. AI is being poured into making software development faster and maybe even easier.
And faster development means?
It could mean the apps and websites you use get better, faster. New features might roll out more quickly. Bugs might get fixed sooner. The whole pace of innovation and the digital tools you rely on could accelerate.
Okay, so the tools the coders use affect the tools we use. Makes sense.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And think about the competition. OpenAI, Microsoft, Anthropic, Google, they're all battling for these developers. That competition drives innovation.
How so?
Well, advancements they make in AI for coding, making AI better understand complex instructions, better at generating creative solutions, better at debugging those breakthroughs, might eventually spill over into other AI applications that affect all of us.
Like the race car analogy. Tech developed for racing eventually shows up in regular cars.
Exactly like that. Better AI for coding could lead to better AI for, I don't know, helping doctors, designing products, managing complex systems. The principles can transfer.
So it's not just about code.
No. And fundamentally, watching how AI learns to collaborate with humans in a complex, creative task like coding, That gives us really valuable clues about how AI can assist humans in other complex creative tasks in the future.
It's a test case for human AI collaboration.
In a way, yeah. And finally, even if the technical details go over your head, just understanding these big strategic moves, the fight for data, the push for ecosystem control, gives you a better sense of how the future of AI is shaping up, and that's going to impact everyone.
Okay, great summary. So let's wrap this deep dive up. Key takeaways from OpenAI potentially buying Windsurf.
I'd say, number one, it's likely about getting crucial real-world data to make their coding AI much better. Two, it's a strategic play to control more of the developer environment and capture more value directly. And three, it's a major move in the increasingly fierce competition over the future of AI-powered software creation.
And for you, listening, even if coding isn't your world, this $3 billion potential deal is a window into how AI is changing the very foundation of our digital lives, how the software we use gets built.
It really is. And maybe here's a final thought to leave you with. We talked a lot about AI assisting coders,
Mm.
but think beyond code. What other complex jobs, creative fields, or even hobbies that you're involved in? How might AI assistants transform those areas in the coming years?
Hmm.
If AI can help build complex software more efficiently, what other intricate tasks could it help us with? Where else might we see AI step in, not just as a tool, but more like a collaborator? Definitely something to ponder as this technology keeps evolving.